Hello everyone, my name is Danish Buns, and welcome to this episode of A Noob's Review. This is the gaming show where I bring you relatively unknown titles or new releases, and try and provide some background information on the functionality of the game, as well as my overall opinion. Today I am ecstatic to bring you Darksiders 2, the highly anticipated sequel to the original Darksiders. So let's talk about Darksiders 2. Taking place in an alternate reality, you play Death, one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Your brother War has been imprisoned for supposedly starting the apocalypse before its planned time, and it now falls to you to bring order back into the universe. Wielding a pair of wicked scythes, you dispense death among those who rightfully deserve it as you attempt to clear War's name. However, you are not only limited to wielding scythes. This game also has a very extensive list of secondary weaponry, ranging from speedy pistols to impressive hammers. Each of these weapons can also carry special effects, such as Life Drain to suck your opponent's health away, or Shock, which leaves your enemy with a really unpleasant itching sensation that no cream will ever be able to remove. Each of these weapons also has a varying damage output, which naturally increases as you level. There is also a trait system in this game which allows you to improve your character as it levels, giving Death special abilities that allow you to create your own personal harbinger of destruction. After equipping and training Death, you must venture forth through a massive world full of dungeons, each with their own unique puzzles and enemies. The puzzles vary in difficulty and size, yet all seem to have a very unique aspect to them rather than simply repeating earlier challenges. It should also be noted that these dungeons tend to have pretty impressive boss fights, all of which require incredible dexterity as well as strategic use of combo attacks, which enable Death to flay his enemies with greater precision than a Benihana chef. Now I'd like to get into some of the positive aspects of the game, and the first thing I'd like to talk about is the absolutely magnificent audio soundtrack that plays in the background. Take a listen to this short sequence. You truly feel as if you're atop a frozen mountain, venturing further into the abyss with music like that. In fact, the soundtrack throughout the entirety of this game manages to add large amounts of character to the scenery and the story, which dramatically helps immerse the player into the gameplay. This fantastic piece of work was composed by Jesper Kyd, who also worked on the Assassin's Creed soundtracks. Another great aspect of this game is its magnificent storytelling, via some incredibly talented voice actors. Each character's vibrant background and depth is vividly explored as you listen to them during conversation, and each of these voices manages to masterfully tell the tale of their character without even beginning to explain their history. Simply by listening to a juvenile respond sarcastically, or taking in grave advice from an elder, you can begin to paint a picture of these characters' lives. This attribute helps players dive deep into Darksiders 2, becoming fully immersed in a fantastic world seemingly void of the ordinary. Something else that I immensely enjoyed while playing this game was the incredibly fluid combat mechanics. Battling endless hordes of opponents becomes impossible very quickly if you are unable to master the rolling and blocking mechanics, each of which can vary depending on your enemy's current attack. Hacking and slashing is also very enjoyable, mainly due to the very deft mixture of both primary and secondary weapons, which enables a player to switch back and forth between the two weapons, unleashing devastating attacks depending on the specific key combinations pressed. On top of that, skills your character unlocks can also dramatically shape the combat, allowing for more tactical engagements rather than button mashing your way to really bloody fingers. And I haven't even mentioned the execution ability, which makes for a wonderful display of blood and gore. All these mechanics tie together to form an incredibly solid combat system, which has to be one of the most enjoyable aspects of this game. It's time for me to talk about some things that I did not enjoy about Darksiders 2, with the first being the lack of mass combat. In the original Darksiders, it was hard to go from place to place without having to defeat an enormous horde of enemies. but that appears to have somewhat disappeared from the sequel. Though combat does still occur and remains very enjoyable, the amount of enemies you engage at certain points remains small due to the raised difficulty of these enemies. The more challenging combat is always welcome. It feels like there's something missing from the game, which in my opinion is the lack of grunts. Having to combat hordes of weak enemies may not be overly challenging, but in a game that touts its combat system, you really don't get to enjoy the pleasure of hacking mindless zombies to the ground as you did in the first game. Another aspect that grated me during this game was the simple yet lengthy puzzles. Though many puzzles in Darksiders 2 were challenging and enjoyable to complete, there were some puzzles that were very easy to solve. Now the issue with this is not that these puzzles were easy to solve, since this is relative to the player. No, the real problem is that after solving the puzzle, it takes double or triple the amount of time to simply complete it. This becomes incredibly tedious, especially when you have to move a ball around from block to block several times over and over again just to unlock a room, and it took you seconds to simply figure this out. This was an issue that also persisted in the original Darksiders, and though it has drastically been reduced, it still is relatively annoying to have to continue to complete a puzzle 5 minutes after you've mentally finished it. But after those few problems, I have to say that Darksiders 2 is easily one of my favorite games of 2012. It actually very much reminds me of Zelda. From solving dungeons and opening chests to running across a gigantic opening field that immediately reminds you of Hyrule, it's really hard not to draw that comparison. Hell, you can even smash pots and find money inside, which actually made me giggle like a little girl. Anyways, I'm getting away from myself. My rating for this game is a solid 8 out of 10, and I urge you to check out the original Darksiders as well. That's it for me. Thank you for watching this episode of A Noob's Review. My name is Danish Buns. If you guys have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please feel free to send me an email at camelsilo@gmail.com or leave a comment in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.
There can be no life without order. Good, evil, darkness, light. There must be balance in the universe. Such is the decree of the Charred Council, an ancient body charged by the Creator to preserve the very fabric of existence. But the balance has been broken. Even now, Earth smolders in ruin, fallen to the demon lords, and the Destroyer carves a new kingdom amongst his mighty chosen. Some say the Horseman War triggered the apocalypse, that he rode to Earth unbidden and doomed.